Now students, today we are going to solve one-dimensional heat equation with Dirichlet-type boundary conditions, which does not require the integration by parts, but it will use the comparing of coefficient methods to get the particular solution, or we can say that to find the coefficient, value of coefficient in the general solution. So as usual, we have a partial differential equation, heat equation, which is ut is equal to uxx, and how it is differentiated with the wave equation, that the wave equation will have double derivative with respect to t, but the heat equation will have the single derivative with respect to t. Here in this partial differential equation, I omit the constant because when we are going to solve it mathematically, we see that this constant is normally appear in the solution only, and it has no role in the calculation or in the method of separation of variable. So sometimes in order to simplify the question, we omit this constant. What other thing we have is the boundary conditions, which is u0t is equal to 0 and u1t is equal to 0, which means that we have a kind of one-dimensional object in the rectangular coordinate system. Which has length 1. So the important part of this question, which differentiates it with the previous question, is the form of initial condition. So if the initial condition is given in the form of series of sine, then we are going to use the comparing the coefficient method, and we will save ourselves with the integration by parts. So we are going to solve it with the method of separation of variable. And the method of separation of variable has the solution, assumed solution, as product of two independent variable. Here for example we have x and t, so we assume a variable capital X which is a function of small x, and a capital T which is the function of small t. We call our main equation as equation number 1 and the assumed solution as equation number 2. Now we are going to take the derivative because we need the values of uxx and ut, and we will get them by considering equation number 2. So we differentiate equation number 2 with respect to x twice. So equation 2 was like this. When we differentiate it once, we will get a subscript ux here, which shows the derivative with respect to x, and as t is the constant, because we have assumed that these both are independent, so the constant will come out of the derivative and will be the same, but the derivative of x will be represented by x prime, so t of t will be the same. When we again differentiate it, then we will get another x in the subscript, and t as a constant will come outside the derivative, and the derivative of x prime will become the x double prime. So t will be unchanged. We call it equation A. In order to get the t, we differentiate the assumed solution, which was equation number 2, with respect to t. Since it is the first derivative, so we are differentiating once only. So equation 2 becomes, because we have differentiated with respect to t, there will be a t in the subscript, and at that time the x is considered as the constant, so it will come out of the derivative, and the derivative of t will be represented by the t prime. We call it equation number B. So we are putting equation A and B in equation number 2. In equation number 1, what we get? Will form like this. We can bring the x variable at one side of the equation and the t on the other side, and it will become like. Now we have assumed that x and t are independent of each other, but we are looking at the situation where a ratio of two independent variable, this is the ratio of x, this is the ratio of t, and there is an equal sign which comes after step by step. So we have to justify this one. So how can we justify it? We can say that the two independent ratios are equal to each other if and only if they are equal to some constant. So they have to be equal to some kind of constant, then only they can be equal to each other. So this constant, we can consider it any symbol. For the consistency with the previous question, we are considering as lambda. We can also take the mu or alpha, beta, gamma, anything, but for the consistency we are taking lambda. And we call it the constant of separation. Now, after introducing this constant of separation, we can say that this ratio is equal to constant, which give us an equation like this. And this ratio, if equal to constant, will give us the equation like this. We do not need to write it as a function because we know that capital T is the function of small t. So if we are not writing it anymore, it's okay. So we call it equation number 3 and we call it equation number 4. Now we see that what do we have is a second order linear homogeneous differential equation as equation 3 and a first order linear homogeneous differential equation as equation number 4. If we solve these equations, because these are very popular differential equations, so we will get something like this, which is the solution. So solution will be x. And if we find the solution of this equation, we will get something t of t. And if you remember that in equation 2, which is our assumed solution, we assume that the solution of partial differential equation, this is the partial differential equation solution, u, is a product of x and t of t. Which means that if we solve these differential equations, second order and first order, then we will get the solution of our partial differential equation. So this is the beauty of the method of separation of variable, which separates the solution in the solutions of two easy equations, two ordinary differential equations which is easy to solve. So all we have to do is to find the solutions of these two equations. We first consider the equation number 3. But there are two confusions here. To write the solution of this equation, we have to choose the value of lambda, because we just say that this is the constant of separation, but we did not decide the nature of this constant, whether it is 0, whether it is positive constant, whether it is some negative constant. So it means that we have to find all three cases. We have to solve this equation for all three cases of lambda, that is lambda is equal to 0, lambda is greater than 0, or lambda is less than 0. Now when we see all solutions, we see that the solution has the form ax plus b. If we take lambda is equal to 0, it will be a exponential kx plus b exponential minus kx when lambda is greater than 0 or lambda is equal to positive k square. So because of this lambda is equal to k square, when we put this lambda is equal to k square, the equation will become like x double dash minus kx is equal to 0. So the solution a exponential kx plus b exponential minus kx will satisfy this equation. That was the original equation. Now if we put lambda less than 0 or lambda is equal to minus k square, then if we put lambda is equal to minus k square here, then the equation will become plus k square x. In that case, the solution satisfy this equation would be a cos kx plus b sin kx. So we see that for a general equation x double dash minus lambda x is equal to 0, three solutions exist for three cases of lambda. Now we are going to find one by one for each case. We call it case 1, we call it case 2, and we call it case 3. Now there is a problem that we have the coefficients in the solutions a and b, and in order to find the value of these coefficients, we should have some boundary conditions. Of course, we have the boundary conditions. When we were given the partial differential equation, we got the boundary conditions. If you remember, the boundary conditions were written like u0t is equal to 0 and u1t is equal to 0. These boundary condition tells us that the temperature represented by u at the place point 0 is 0 and the temperature at point 1 is 0. So that was our one-dimensional object, 0 and 1, these two endpoints, and the temperature here is 0 and the temperature here is 0. So these were our boundary condition given to us with the equation. Now there is a problem in these boundary conditions, is that boundary conditions are dependent on x and t both, because these are the boundary condition of partial differential equation. However, the equation we are going to solve is an ordinary differential equation. So the ordinary differential equation has only one variable, which is x. So we need boundary conditions which only depends on x and do not depend on the t, which means that we consider them as old boundary condition and we have to make the new boundary conditions. So in order to solve each case, we first have to get the new boundary conditions. So let me label them as old boundary conditions or given boundary conditions for the partial differential equations. So in order to get the new boundary conditions, we are again going to consider our assumed solution. So considering equation number 2, which was u xt is equal to x of x and t of t. Now we will put one by one the boundary conditions. This is the first one, this is the second one. So we have first old boundary condition and second old boundary condition. So we apply first old boundary condition. When we apply the first old boundary condition, we see that x is equal to 0 here. So we put 0 here and it will become the first boundary condition. As we have put x is equal to 0 here, we again put x is equal to 0 here and t of t is unchanged. And this u0t is equal to 0. That's why we write as 0 here. Now we see the situation of this side. We see that the product of two variable is 0. So 1 must be 0, which means that either x0 is equal to 0 or t of t is equal to 0. One member must be 0 in order to satisfy this condition. What do we know about an initial boundary value problem is that the initial condition or the starting of the experiment is represented by t is equal to 0. When the experiment started, t is equal to 0, and for the rest of the experiment, t is greater than 0 or t has some positive value. Which means that if we take this term as a 0, it will be the start of experiment and it will give us the trivial solution. That's why we cannot consider this part as equal to 0. And we have remained with x0 is equal to 0. So this is our first boundary condition or first new boundary condition, in which we see that there is no t element and it is only dependent on x, and our equation was also in the variable x. So that's why this is the relevant boundary condition for our ordinary differential equation. In order to get the second new boundary condition, we apply second old boundary condition in equation 2 as we have done for the first one. So when we put second boundary condition in equation 2, then we will put 1 in place of x. So this will leave us place 1 here and t of t, and this u1 of t is equal to 0. Again, by the argument that the product of two member is 0, then 1 must be 0. T of t cannot be 0 because t is equal to 0 is the starting of the experiment. So we have remaining with exponential x1 is equal to 0. So this is our second new boundary condition. Now we write boundary conditions here. And we can now solve the equation number 3. So I write the equation here, and we are going to solve it for the case 1 where lambda is equal to 0. At that time the solution would become ax plus b. Now in order to find the value of a and b, we are going to use the boundary conditions. So we apply first boundary condition. And when we say boundary conditions, we are referring to new boundary conditions. So new boundary condition is x0, because we are putting x is equal to 0. So a into 0, in place of x we put 0 plus b. And this x of 0 is equal to 0. From here we see that as this term goes to 0, we see that b is equal to 0. Now we apply second boundary condition in the general solution. This is the general solution of the equation when lambda is equal to 0. So when we apply the second boundary condition, this is x of 1 is equal to a into 1 plus b is equal to 0, and we have found that b is already 0. So we cancel out this one and we are remaining with only a is equal to 0. So there is a problem with this solution, that both a and b are 0. The solution we are getting in which the coefficients have no value or coefficients value is 0. So this will give us the trivial solution. When both of the coefficients are 0, which means that we cannot use this equation to find anything, and the solution is not of our use. So the solution we get when lambda is equal to 0 will give us the trivial solution or useless solution. We can call it a useless solution, we cannot use it. Then we check the case 2 when lambda is greater than 0. Lambda is greater than 0. We have a solution. X of x is equal to a exponential lambda greater than 0 or lambda is equal to k square, in order to save us by having square root terms here, square root of lambda. So we put lambda is equal to k square plus b exponential minus kx. Now we have a and b here. To find the coefficients, we apply first boundary condition. Of course, the new one. Then we see that x0 is equal to ae exponential k into 0 plus b exponential minus k into 0, and this x of 0 is equal to 0 by the boundary conditions. So what do we have now here is a exponentials becomes 1 because they have power 0. So a plus b is equal to 0, which means that b is equal to minus a. So whatever a is, the negative of it will be the b. Then we apply second boundary condition to get some information, and we are putting it in the general solution. X of 1 now, because x is equal to 1 here, this is the second end, second boundary. So e exponential k into 1 plus b into exponential minus k into 1, and this x of 1 is equal to 0. And we have found that b is equal to minus a. We can write it as a exponential k minus a exponential minus k is equal to 0. We can also write it like taking a common, e exponential k minus 1 upon e exponential k is equal to 0. Now we have a situation that product of two term is 0. One is the bracket term, second one is a coefficient itself. So how we decide that which one is the 0? First we see exponential k. We know that k is something positive. greater than 0. So k is positive, and if something is exponentially increasing and we subtract 1 upon the same thing, so if k is something, for example a, then 1 upon k must be less than a. This term which is going to subtract from this term is always lower than, because both are same, one is in the fraction and one is the whole term. And e exponential k is a positive term, so if you subtract something from the positive term which is less than that term, so this bracket cannot be 0. This is always the something greater than 0 or positive. This leaves us no choice but to consider a is equal to 0. Now if a is equal to 0 and b is equal to minus a, which means that b is equal to 0. What do we have now here? Again, we have a and b both are 0 in this general solution, which give us the trivial solution, and we have no choice but to reject this solution. So what do we have now is to check the case number 3. When lambda is less than 0 or lambda is equal to minus k square, when we put k square here, we will get a solution in the form of sine and cos. A cos kx plus b sine kx. Now we need the value of coefficients. We use the boundary conditions. So applying first boundary condition, this is the x of 0 is equal to a cos k into 0 plus b sine k into 0, and this x of 0 is equal to 0. Cos 0 is 1, so we are here a. Sine 0 is 0, so the whole term will become 0. This will become 1, and we are leaving with a is equal to 0. Now we apply second boundary condition in the general solution. In which a is equal to 0, therefore this whole portion is removed and we are only have b sine kx. So if we put x of 1 is equal to b sine kx, since a is equal to 0, so we cannot write this term, and this x of 1 is equal to 0. If this is the situation, then we have sine k is equal to 0. Then we have a situation, the product of two terms is 0. So which one will be 0? B or sine k? We know that we have already seen two cases where a and b both were 0 and they were the trivial solution. We have remaining with the case 3, which is the last one, in which one of the coefficient is already 0. So if we consider b is equal to 0, then it will again give us the trivial solution. Now to save the b, we forcefully say that the b is not equal to 0. Sorry, b cannot be 0. So we have no choice but to put sine k is equal to 0. Now in order to justify this statement that sine k is equal to 0, we can say that sine k can be 0 if we have k is equal to pi, sine pi is equal to 0, or we have sine 2 pi, or k is equal to 3 pi, or k is equal to 4 pi. So each multiple of pi, if k is equal to that quantity, then this term will be equal to 0, which means that it only happens when k is equal to n pi, where n is equal to 1, 2, 3. From here we have the value of k. Now we have saved the b. Okay. Since a was 0, so our general solution is now reduced only in b sine kx. That term would be 0. Because a was 0. So our general solution is only b sine kx. Since we know the value of k, then the general solution is become b sine n pi x, where n is equal to 1, 2, 3 and so on. Now there are multiple sine terms, sine pi x, sine 2 pi x, sine 3 pi x, and this sine has a coefficient associated with it. When this is sine kx, which was considered a single number, there was only b, general coefficient. But now since there are multiple terms here, sine n, sine pi x, sine 2 pi x, there should be some multiple coefficients here. So we introduce a subscript n here, which shows that there are several coefficients and several sine terms. Now this is not a single solution, this is multiple solutions, there are multiple sine terms here. Therefore the solution also has a subscript n here. This is what we have got the solution for the equation number 3. We call it equation C. What we are leaving with is equation number 4. If we find the solution of equation number 4, we can put these two in equation number 2 and we will get our solution of the partial differential equation. So considering the remaining equation number 4, that was the first order differential equation, is lambda t, and we know that we have found the solution of this x equation for lambda is equal to 0. So we can solve it as c exponential lambda t, and we know the value of lambda is negative k square and lambda is equal to n pi. Lambda is equal to minus k square and k is equal to n pi. So lambda is equal to minus n square pi square. So when we replace lambda with the n term, it will become minus n square pi square t. Since the n has multiple values, so the coefficient associated with the exponential will be multiple, and we represent it with the Cn, which means that C1, C2, C3 for each e minus pi square t minus 2 square pi square t minus 3 square pi square t. So if we represented it by multiple solutions, so this should be, sorry, this is not a derivative, this is a solution. So there will be an n with the t. We call it equation number D. Now these were the terms we need to represent equation number 2 as a solution. We can now put C and D in equation number 2 to get our solution. So putting C and D in equation 2, we got u x t is equal to bn sine n pi x cn exponential minus n square pi square t. Since these are the multiple solutions, that's why we have to represent it with the un, which shows the multiple solutions of the partial differential equation, given partial differential equation. We can combine bn and cn and combine them in the form of one coefficient. So this is dn and this is sine n pi x exponential minus n square pi square t. Now here we get the help of superposition principle, which says that sum of the solution is also a solution. So in order to make it uxt, superposition principle says that sum of all solutions is also a solution. So what do we have is multiple solutions here. So in order to make it the single solution, now we have got the solution which was our assumed solution, that was ux of t, that was not unx of t. So we have made it ux of t using the superposition principle, and we have sum all of these solutions d1, d2, d3, sine pi x, sine 2 pi x, exponential minus pi square t minus 2 square pi square t. We sum all of them in the form of a single solution. So finally this is our general solution. Now this is not the whole story, and in order to find the value of this coefficient dn, we have to use our initial condition, and at this stage we will see that in the previous question where we used the integration by parts, now we are not going to use integration by parts because the initial condition is given in the series of sine functions. So here we use the comparing the coefficients. So this is the general solution, and in order to get the particular solution, we will use the initial condition. So first we are going to write the general solution again. It was summation n is equal to 1 to infinity dn sine n pi x exponential minus n square pi square t, and call it the equation number 5. Maybe we use it in the future, and we apply initial condition. So the initial condition was always in the form of ux0. So that was n is equal to 1 to infinity dn sine n pi x exponential minus n square pi square, where t is equal to 0 here, t also equal to 0 here, and the initial condition ux of 0 was sine 2 pi x. I am removing the boundary conditions, we are no longer in need of it. Sine 2 pi x minus 1 upon 4 sine 3 pi x. So since we put t is equal to 0, the exponential term will become 1, and we are remaining with summation n is equal to 1 to infinity dn sine n pi x is equal to sine 2 pi x minus 1 upon 4 sine 3 pi x. We expand this side because this is the sum of some terms. So if we put n is equal to 1, we have first term d1 sine pi x. When we put n is equal to 2, we have d2 sine 2 pi x. When we put n is equal to 3, d3 sine 3 pi x. So the situation here is something like this: d1 sine 1 pi x plus d2 sine 2 pi x plus d3 sine 3 pi x plus so on, and that is equal to sine 2 pi x minus 1 upon 4 sine 3 pi x. Now we compare the coefficients of sine terms on both sides. We see that here we have sine pi x, here we do not have sine pi x. Or we can say, yes, we do have here sine pi x but with the coefficient 0. So if we write 0 sine pi x and put it here, then the expression will be the same. There will be no difference in the expression. But we have something to compare it, which means that d1 is equal to 0. So if we compare sine 2 pi x, we have a term here sine 2 pi x which has a coefficient as 1, which means that if we compare the coefficient of the term sine 2 pi x on both sides, d2 is equal to 1. The next term is sine 3 pi x. We have sine 3 pi x here, we have sine 3 pi x here. The coefficient here is d3, the coefficient here is minus 1 by 4. Therefore, when we compare the coefficient, it becomes d3 is equal to minus 1 by 4. Now if we see, there is some d4 sine 4 pi x after this term, but there is no sine 4 pi x. Or we can say that yes, it is present, sine 4 pi x is present, but with the coefficient 0. Similarly, all terms are present but with the coefficient 0. So this leaves no changes in this expression in their side. And we are concluding it with d4 is equal to 0 and d5 is equal to 0, and all other coefficients are 0. So in this expression here we have remaining with only sine 2 pi term and sine 3 pi term. All other terms have become 0 because we compared it with here. So what do we have is the value of d2 and d3 with all other terms are 0, and we can apply this to equation number 5. So we have found the coefficients, and it has been revealed that there is only d2 and d3 survive and rest of the terms become 0. So equation 5 becomes uxt, which is the solution of the partial differential equation. We have expanded the summation, so we have remaining with d2 sine 2 pi x exponential minus n square pi square t plus d3 sine 3 pi x exponential minus n square pi square t. It is multiplying with both of them, and d2 is equal to 1, so this is sine 2 pi x exponential, because we have n is equal to 2, so this is 2 square pi square t plus d3 was 1 by 4 and it was minus 1 by 4, so I'm putting it here minus 1 by 4 sine 3 pi x exponential, n3 was survived only, so minus 3 square pi square t. This is the solution. This is the general solution, which has now the value of coefficients d2 1 and d3 minus 1 by 4. Therefore, we call it our particular solution. And this is now the end of the story. In the general solution, only two terms survived, d2 and d3. Rest of the terms are eliminated because their coefficients were 0. So this is now the particular solution. Particular solution is the one which has the value of coefficient. So that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching.